Hello, our dear viewers, and welcome to this show of The Deeper Conversations. I'm your host, Zipporah Gachuche, and very glad to have you with us on this show. Today, we are going to delve into a rather interesting topic. And to start us off, we have our guest, Mr. Kevin Gashi. And I think we start by you introducing yourself, and then we can take up the conversation from there. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
I'm Kevin Gashi. I'm a consultant psychologist in private practice. I'm also a mental health advocate. I try to create awareness and advocate for mental health as much as I can.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Super. And thank you so much, Kevin, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And today I want us to have a discussion around a topic that maybe not so many people are talking about. We have had a lot of talk about mental health, about the Gen Z, and there seems to be a generation that has kind of slipped through the cracks or is not getting the due attention, but we know there's a lot happening there.
Right.
This is the Gen X.
Yes.
The Gen X are mainly the parents of the Gen Z.
Yeah.
And I know from where you sit as a practicing a psychologist and a mental health advocate, I know you have a wider scope and a wider view of a lot that is happening that is not being talked about.
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe you can just start us off by giving us a brief definition. Who is the Gen X?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, yeah, you're right. The Gen X is known as the generation that feels alienated, for lack of a better word. And the Gen X are people born between 1965 and 1980, right? So that's the Gen X generation. And now, when we're looking at the Gen X, we first have to consider the people who raised them, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
we have to look at the generations before that. Here we're talking the Boomer generation, the traditionalist generation. And the Boomer and traditionalist generations, as parents, they weren't really there as parents because a lot was going on in the world at that time. There was world wars, there was colonization.
Yes.
So
yes.
Gen X had to raise themselves a lot. Many had to raise themselves. And even for those who had parents presently there, I mean physically there, they may have not been as present.
Yeah.
Right? Many Gen X feel like they couldn't really interact with their parents. So they raised themselves. Survival was the narrative.
Yes.
When you're trying to survive, you simplify things, right? You look at things in black
Very
and white.
true. Very true.
There's no time to look at the different shades of gray.
Yes.
Right? They prioritized stability because there was not much options. So when you get that job, you stick to that job. No matter how much it's affecting you maybe, or if you're being paid peanuts, because there are not many options.
Yeah.
You stick there, you be grateful for that job.
Yeah.
You don't question authority, So there was a lot, survival was the narrative. Survival was the narrative, and that the times, the Gen X times, right, shaped a lot of their views, perspectives, the same way with Gen Z right now.
Yeah.
Gen Z is between people born between 1997 and 2012, right? You'll find that these are two distinct
very
eras.
different.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And each era will shape your perspectives, your culture, your view of life, your core beliefs, you name it. Right?
Literally program you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why you're finding there may be a bit of a disconnect between.
They are two different, the way they think, the way they decide.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm thinking to make it even easier, because when you say between 1960 and 1980, I know there's a lot of people who've been left there doing a lot of math.
Yes.
So 1960, these are the people,
yeah.
in today they would be about what? 60, 65,
yes.
thereabout
Yes.
of age.
Yeah.
And up to 1980,
Yeah.
so that is about up to the age of 45.
Yes.
So we are talking of the parents between the ages of 60,
About
65,
yeah.
60 to about 45,
Yeah.
thereabout.
That.
Very 45 or even more, about 50. Because then now those are the ones who parented the Gen Z
Yes.
that we are seeing today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And many are struggling to reconcile their upbringing
Yes. Yeah.
with the perspectives of their children.
Yeah.
Right? Gen Zs, right? For example, a Gen X during that time, right? Because again, there weren't many options.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was an established blueprint of success where if you have an opportunity to go to school, you go to school.
Exactly.
You can seek higher education, you seek higher education.
Like you.
You get that job, you stick to that job. You get a family, get land, ujenge.
Hivyo.
That's how.
Yeah.
And for many, that's what.
And
worked.
of course, get married. That one
Get
was
married, you know.
That
Yeah.
one was very key. Get
Yeah,
married.
yeah. And a lot of it is stability.
Yeah.
Stability. You're
Yeah.
seeking stability.
Yeah.
Right. Don't rock the boat. Just
Don't
follow
ask too many questions.
Yeah.
And there were institutions like the church, leadership. They were not questionable.
Oh yes, you couldn't question authority.
And this is the generation that held, you would find, especially those who are working in the public service space. Maybe you've gotten a job in the government. You don't walk away from,
You survive.
you survive it.
Yeah.
It wasn't even about that the salary is enough. Or you'll make do
Yeah.
with whatever it is.
Yeah. You don't challenge
Ambition
the
was
system.
not so. You don't challenge the
You
system.
make the system work for you.
And
You try.
ambition was controlled.
Yeah.
You don't go beyond. And it's, we could see people who could hold jobs for even 20, 25 years, one job.
Yeah.
They may rise in the ranks, one position, two positions, but we are the people who had, let me count myself in because I fall within that range,
Yeah.
that could be very patient
Yes.
with maybe a job, an opportunity, and like you have said, life was very simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was survival. When you want to survive, you simplify things.
Yeah.
Now you see with Gen Z,
Yes.
right? They've grown up in the age of information, right? In the digital age where they have exposure to unlimited information, which is different from Gen X where
Yeah.
it was traditional media. So that's radio, TV, newspaper,
And the community.
in the community. Not many people had access to traditional media. And even though you had access to it, it was limited. You knew what maybe the government wanted you to know. Right?
Yes, and you don't question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now with Gen Z, right, they are in the age of information and rapid information.
Yep.
That also.
Yep.
They're able to know what's happening in Gaza. They're able to know what's happening in Ukraine in real time.
Yes,
And
yeah.
good information about it, not just headlines.
Proper information.
Yeah. So for them, they're not trying to only survive, they're trying to thrive, right? Because they know there's more in store than what's being offered in their backyard. There's a boldness and a curiosity.
Yes,
That
yes.
is also important, And I think Gen X look at that, and because it's very unfamiliar for them during
Yeah.
their times to question authority or to ask questions. They see that as, hey, are you being
This
disrespectful?
is too much. Yeah, now you're crossing the boundaries.
Yes.
We are not supposed to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's unusual.
Yeah.
And then now for Gen Z, they're looking at Gen X as backdated, passive, emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
You know, because
Not understanding.
yeah, these things are being dismissed. They're asking a question, it's being dismissed, you know. But again, it's a difference in times, you know. That has contributed to the disconnect. Just the times shaped a lot of people's.
So it is not an issue of disrespect.
No.
It is not disrespect.
Yeah. In my opinion, no.
And you would actually understand it better because now you're dealing with both generations.
Yes, yes.
At a consultative level.
Yes.
You see, for the rest of us, we are looking at it from our own small cocoons, our own small world. But for you now, it is at a more consultative level. You're able to understand what is happening to both, actually.
Yes.
So it is not that Gen X is being, what is it? Is it evasive of these questions? Passive. Is also that maybe we also don't understand because, like you said, this is a generation that has been raised with a lot of information, which for the Gen X, that was not a privilege. So the lack of information also, there was a lack of opportunities maybe. The lack of understanding so much and having the opportunity maybe to dissect a situation because you're dealing with it on the basis of the very little information and how again you've been structured. Now we have the Gen Z who can access information. We saw what they did when Tanzania, you know, the situation between us and Tanzania, and you know,
the camaraderie,
you know, and that is something that would there before be totally not even thinkable, let alone unheard of. It is not even thinkable. It's a place, you know, a boundary that would not be crossable if there's such a word. So then we can see the disconnect. And so now we are looking at then how do we deal with it? Because we have seen, let's even before we go to dealing with it, we see now this disconnect has also brought a lot of conflict where family settings are concerned, especially now the Gen X. You know, and maybe from where you sit, we can discuss now what is happening in the world of Gen X. Yeah, because we know a lot of what is happening with Gen Z, but what is happening with the Gen X?
So from you know the people from different walks of life I talk to, and many Gen X, one thing that cuts across is many feel many are struggling with feelings of inadequacy, right? Because again, as I said, there's a struggle between reconciling their upbringing and their core beliefs with the world today, and you know, their children's core beliefs and priorities, right? So there's that happening, and also they're known as the generation of overextension, right?
Explain that.
They are taking care of their parents.
Yes.
They are taking care of their children, Gen Z, right?
Yes.
Millennials as well.
Yes.
They're taking care of their peers, right? So
Very
there's a
true.
lot of
that is pouring out.
And what is happening now, it's leading to a lot of burnout. You know, many are thriving on burnout, like they're burnt out but functional.
Insisting, because also they are no. Then what do you do? You can't just, you know? You can't just abandon and.
So when you know the kids are like, hey, mom, you're forgetting nowadays, or I told you this, and I didn't tell you. I mean, some of it is burnout because there's just so much.
There's too much. Right?
Many also are dealing with existential crisis where, you know, many had goals that they had set. By the time I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'll have done this. But because they've been overextending themselves, giving a lot, they haven't been able to meet that goal. And then they reach that age. And
where now they are just tired.
you know.
Yeah, and the opportunities are also passing by.
Yeah, and also just feeling left behind. I mean, the world is growing at a rapid rate. You know, you see like AI coming.
Yeah.
So there's that where just, you know, feeling like, can we really catch
up, or do we just sit back and enjoy our own, you know, create our own world here?
Yeah.
And just settle there?
Yeah. So those are the main issues, but like all in all, I would say there's just a feeling that their life experiences and their perspectives feeling undervalued, you know.
Irrelevant.
Or irrelevant, yes, because it's being challenged.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But now Gen X also have a responsibility to seek understanding, right? What I mean by that is, for example, if you notice there's a disconnect somewhere, right? It's important to understand why there's that disconnect, right? If, for example, let's give the example of social media. Let's use social media as an example. Now, Gen Zs have grown up with social media. You could say it's, for many, they feel like it's a part of them. They found a voice, they found empowerment, they found community, you know, through social media, right? Gen X migrated to the
and are still trying to learn and to handle this thing and
with skepticism. Also, you know,
being very careful.
You know, So now a Gen X can look at a Gen Z on their device or social media and feel, hey, this person is spending too much time on a device.
They literally live inside there.
They are alienating us, right? Now, if you speak to the Gen Z, they'll tell you, I have a community online, right? I don't feel like I have a community here. You know, mom has a community with her chama. Dad has a community with golf or something. My community is here, right? So it's not, you see, it's a
so these are three different worlds, all living under the same roof, but they are all in their own spaces. They are not connected, they're not synchronized.
There's no understanding.
There's nobody who is understanding what is happening in the world of the other.
And seeking understanding means that having an open mind, you know, where understanding that I mean, both generations can borrow from one another. You know?
I think the idea there, you know, the key word is open mind. Because even if, for example, the parent was to open up, say now the mother was to open up and, you know, talk about maybe this is the world of, you know, my chama, because that is where maybe I still have some form of relevance. Is where I still can take in something that builds me, because there is so much that I'm giving out. But in the space of this my chama, at least I am able to drink in some energy, so that I can be able to also have something to give out. It is the place where maybe I am understood, because in your space of social media, I have no clue what, and even if I was to get in there, by the time I start learning, you know, and understanding, and even if there is understanding, then again there is also the space where you know, parents become a bit perturbed. That the audacity, the courage, the boldness, the openness with which some of these topics are being discussed, which in you know, the world of the Gen X, were totally, you know, criminal or taboo. But in this world, I mean, it's I mean, it's no big. It's out in the open. So I think what you're saying, an open mind, get into that space with an open mind. But then this should be two-way. I want to assume that
it's collaborative. It's collaborative. But definitely, to be honest, with the Gen X, there is that, you know, feeling of being alienated.
Yeah.
Because it's just hard to reconcile
Yeah.
with how things are. And even the fact that there's just so much overextension,
Yes, yeah.
it's hard to be present. So many are going through difficulties that are not obvious to them. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're burnt out, but you may not
You
know.
yourself, you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know you're burnt out. You're sleep deprived.
You just survive.
You're just surviving.
Yeah.
And you see, with Gen Z, when they see that,
they don't want
it's
that.
not appealing,
You
yeah.
maisha by this. I don't want that. If that is it,
at the end of the
no,
day,
thank you.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now now we've talked about the mother, the children. Now the father is also left in a space which is even more vulnerable. I would want to imagine.
Yeah.
Because women can talk. Women get into those chamas and it's almost another counseling event.
Yeah.
All on it. They talk, they pour out their hearts, they share, they cry, they laugh. And and by the time they go back home, they are, whether it is chama, whether it is church, they have found systems that can actually support their survival.
Yes.
The man.
Yeah. That's a good question and a good topic, given that it's Men's Mental
Yes.
Health Month also.
Yes.
So, yes. One thing. Now, in general, and I think this is an important fact to mention. 80% of suicides in the world are men.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the biggest contributing factors is many men feel like they cannot be vulnerable without judgment, right? Now, as generations, younger generations come along, that narrative is slowly
fading.
Yeah, it's fading slowly. But there's still a lot of work to do. Now, considering all that, right? Now, Gen X men,
Yes, because those are the ones who are raised to be men.
Yes,
don't cry, don't talk.
Yeah.
Just be this tough.
Yeah, don't show emotion. Just stoicism. You had to be stoic.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a term, we call it, in the mental health world, we call it alexithymia. Alexithymia is a term used to describe when a person has difficulty showing emotion and interpreting emotion. So interpreting dealing with someone else's emotions is hard, and even their own. So you'll find that either the person shuts down or they'll avoid it. There's a lot of avoidance when it comes to things for emotion. And alexithymia is something many men in the Gen X generation.
And they might be interpreted as being cold and
emotionally unavailable
or just very insensitive.
Yeah, dismissive.
Yeah.
But
they're actually dealing with something.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, when something is happening, we have to try and understand why.
Yeah.
Understanding is different from justification. You can understand why something is happening without justifying it. That's the thing about understanding, right? Where, context, like, dad, mom, hey, they're emotionally unavailable. Am I able to understand?
Just understand first.
Yes, without justifying anything, not saying it's right. You're giving the situation too much power and it can interfere with you moving forward, right?
Just opening up will also put me in a situation where I become vulnerable to those that I have been taught not to be vulnerable to, and just dealing with that, just opening up and dealing with that might actually be too much for that person. And it might be misinterpreted as being arrogant, as being, insensitive, as not wanting to be part of the healing journey. But they are also struggling with who the person they've been programmed to be.
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
We're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And products of our environment as well.
Exactly.
So if this is how you're conditioned,
breaking
it becomes
away
the way you know.
Yeah.
So breaking away with it is hard.
It's
but
not a one
it's
time.
very deliberate, you know.
Yeah.
It's very deliberate.
And it comes at a price.
Oh yes, yes.
Okay.
So with the Gen X men, you know, many, that's stoicism, that
Yeah.
definition of masculinity at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's
a real
a lot of, you know, things bottled up, and it's informing how interactions are happening, how you know, emotions are being regulated, how these conversations are being had. Yeah.
Okay.
And now to tell someone to be emotionally available after
What are you telling me?
50 years.
What are you talking about?
It
You
sounds
challenge.
like asking them to fly. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Where do we start?
What are you and even
yeah.
why? At
Yeah,
this
and
stage, why?
You know,
At this stage, why?
Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Okay. We'll take a short break, Kevin,
Thank you.
and we'll be back. I think we can pick up the conversation from there.
Okay.
Yeah. And dear viewer, we'll be back in a few, just taking a short commercial break. Please don't go far. Thank you. Welcome back, dear viewer. And today we continue the discussion on the disconnect between the Gen X and the Gen Z. I know for many, especially of the Gen X, this is a most vital conversation. We have seen a lot that has been discussed, a lot that has been unwrapped about the Gen Z, but little has been said about the Gen X, who are their parents, those ranging between the ages of 60, 65 to about 50, 55, thereabout, and are people who feel so, you know, almost lost, invisible, not sure exactly what is happening, and also fearful. And today we have a psychologist, an expert in mental health issues, who is discussing with us this topic because he sits in between, able to talk to both generations. So Kevin, welcome back.
Thank you.
And we have looked at, you know, the genesis of this issue. We have come and seen at the challenges it is raising, especially where the Gen X are concerned. And now we'd want to go through the, you know, how then can we create solutions going forward?
Yeah.
How then do we deal with this situation? And especially because life is not going backwards, as we were saying off air, that, you know, things are only progressing.
Yes.
We are now seeing the coming in of the AI. And, you know, I think for quite a while, the Gen X, we have been very, you know, still holding on to how life used to be.
Yeah.
And how we know it to be.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had conversations maybe with your clients and some of the Gen Z who, and even the Gen X who, you know, maybe the Gen X, the parents who have become very fond of narrating to their children how life used to be, how we used to do stuff, you know, as we used to work hard, we used to go to school without shoes. You know, I know that one is a common one. Heels, and then we work hard, and then once we, you know, go to college, and then we, you know, when we get this job, and I know there are these conversations, and the Gen Z is asking, but even, so that was your time?
Yes.
Should I also go through that? For you to approve of me? Or should, I mean, is it the grit? And we have a generation, the Gen Z, who actually know how to get through life without having to grit so hard, and that is becoming an unacceptable way of
working smart.
Working smart, as we used to work hard, you know. So there is also that clash of ideologies of how life should be.
Yes, yes.
And I've had conversations where parents can't understand why a Gen Z just start with a simple job. You know the way we used to do? You work for a job for even 5 years at this basic salary, then build it, and after about 10 years, maybe you can earn. Then in between there, you can take a small loan. But this for like, what is that? They have like 5 options of how they can make money and not even buy something simple, you know. There are the people who don't mind climbing the tree from the top, you know, and the opportunities are there. So there is that conflict of ideologies. And maybe now going forward we can, because life is not going backwards. We will never return to that time where that, you know, where walking without shoes was a noble thing, you know, something for you to righteous, something for you to talk about and boast about. We are actually progressing into an age maybe where it's even going to get more complex. With AI coming in and life changing, the world becoming a global village. So how then do we handle this? What are the solutions?
Okay, that's a good question. Because change is the only constant. We're not going to stay the same. Every generation will be shaped by the times. Their perspectives and views will be shaped by the times, and times change, right? Now, one solution is empathy. You know, empathy and shared understanding. What I mean by this is both generations would need to understand that the perspectives are shaped by the times. Again, you start with understanding, right? And
not necessarily justifying, but understanding.
Yes, that, you know, the different perspectives are shaped by the times, right? And it's valid, and each generation's perspective is valid based on the context of the times, right? And
this one is shaped like this, programmed like this because of the times they lived in and what was happening around them at that time. And the environment they were in, and the teachers that poured into them, including society, culture, religion, parents, all that.
Exactly, what they were exposed to and what they weren't exposed to.
Thank you.
You know,
and same to this other generation that is also now shaped by what they have interacted with, the environment they have found themselves in. Has programmed them to become this particular kind of person. So it's not that one is evil or disrespectful or
we can't look at it like one is better than the other, or one is, you know, because it's different lanes, different times, right? So now that understanding and empathy is important, right? Also, both generations have shared goals. There are goals that are
true.
Both generations are aligned towards, right? Now, as human beings, we have something called negativity bias. What negativity bias is we tend to focus on the negatives more than the positives. In fact, it's a primal thing. We're born with it. It's supposed to be a protective factor. It's the thing that makes us take that second thought before, you know, being a bit cautious, right? So now, what it also comes with,
when you remember, maybe I walked this path and this happened. Then you become more cautious about walking that same path in the same way. So it's a primal thing. It's something we're born with also, right? It's a defense mechanism. Now, what it comes with is, and it's the reason why, if 3 good things happen today and 3 bad things happen today, and someone asks you how your day was, the 3 bad things first.
Exactly. You know? So also we need to consider that maybe that's happening when we're looking at each generation, when each generation is looking at the other. are you also looking at the positives? Are you looking at the shared goals, right? Another thing also, they'll
Kevin, let's break down
Yes.
that shared goals
Yes.
just a bit.
Yeah.
Because when you say shared goals,
Yeah.
what exactly are we talking about? Are we saying that both generations are aiming for the same thing?
Yes. For example, both generations would like the economy to be better.
Of course, yes.
Right. Both generations would like, and I'm saying this based, not to generalize, of course, but based on many Gen X's I've talked to and Gen Zs, they want the mental health crisis to, to reduce.
Yes.
Right? Because when their children are going through a mental health condition, they are also affected.
Yes,
and even
very
they have
true.
their own
Yeah,
difficulties.
issues. Yes, very
that they're
true.
going through.
Yeah.
So there are these shared goals of empowerment and progress that both generations have, and it's now also talking about that, not only focusing on the disconnect, but also what do we have in common? What can we, collaborate on? Right? Another solution would be, okay, now with the Gen X, there's a lot of unlearning
Yes.
that will need to happen.
Yes.
About Generation X. Generation X,
Sorry.
sorry.
early to mid 1980s and the early 1980s.
Apologies.
It's okay.
Yeah. So yes, there's a lot of unlearning that would need to happen, right? For example, with Gen X, they were socialized not to question authority.
Yes.
You wouldn't question your teacher.
Yes.
You wouldn't question the doctor. You wouldn't
Yes.
question your parents, right? Now with Gen Z
And leadership,
and
especially.
leadership, yeah, you do as you're
Not
told.
possible.
Yeah, especially if someone had a higher position than you, or more money, or more experience, or they're older than you, you do as you're told, right? Now with Gen Z, they work with mutual respect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not a hierarchical kind of system. Yes, you may have all this experience, but also they have perspective. They also have insights. They know that they know things also.
And they do.
Yeah, and they do, right? And so now when a Gen Z is asking a question or challenging something, the Gen X may take it as disrespect, because
Yeah.
to them
That was
a no-no,
never.
and that unlearning of just, okay, this person is seeking
Is not
understanding.
Yeah, they are not being disrespectful.
Exactly.
Yeah, they are not undermining my authority.
Yes.
They are just seeking understanding.
They're seeking understanding.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be rebellious or
Uh-huh.
And on the other side with Gen Z, I mean, because with any type of resolution, it involves a compromise.
Yes.
To some extent. With Gen Z, it may require some patience as well. Some of these things, they're just things that won't change with the Gen X generation, but there are also those things that may change,
Yeah.
and it may take some time for that to happen as well, and patience and empathy. So just unlearning of certain core beliefs that the Gen X have in terms of just interactions with people younger,
Yeah.
that would also be important for that to change. But basically, just the understanding that both generations can borrow from one another. They can.
I think, what you said, understanding that, especially now for the Gen Z to understand that the Gen X were raised very differently. Their belief system, their even how they respond to authority, their boundaries are very, well defined, and they are not as flexible as those of the Gen Z.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you're saying, even understanding that this person also thinks in a very different way from the way I think. So when they react in a certain way, it's also not that they are trying to be, you know, to look down upon me, or they feel like I'm just a child, I don't know anything. They're also coming from somewhere, the way they've been shaped by the world they were raised in. So like you said, now the patience of understanding, okay, this one, the system is like this, and this one, their system of how they think and how they even process information, even acquiring the information. Is like this. But what you're saying, the shared goals, understanding that we are all looking for the same thing. None is out to destroy the other. None is out.
Speaking different languages.
Yeah, exactly. But we are saying the same thing. We all want, you know, the parents do want, or rather the Gen X do want the Gen Z to succeed and to flourish. In fact, you know, there's, I've had 1 or 2 Gen X, you know, say they actually admire the courage, the boldness of the Gen Z, because they've been able to push what they never even had the permission to think. And they actually admire the courage with which and the boldness, because now these people are doing stuff that the Gen X would never have even imagined to do. So we are actually seeing good results. They could have said, okay, this is where we want maybe things to go. But how, the Gen Z have actually come with the how.
With the how, and you know, they're actually making change. You can actually see the change.
True.
You know, for a while it was talked about, we need to change this, and you know, now look, if you look at mental health, the reason why it became a very big topic of conversation. Climate change as well. And you can see it with their actions. You'll find that a Gen Z will prioritize their mental health, even when in different situations, like they will want to know, how does this impact my mental health? Because there's the understanding that nothing can take you as far as your mental health. Yes, a career, all that, but there's nothing that can take you further than your mental health. Your mental health is what determines everything, you know, your peace of mind, your motivation, your clarity, you know, your positivity. So you see now, if Gen Z is prioritizing something like that, for Gen X it was taboo to even talk about it, let alone recognize it. Gen X may look at this as Gen Z are being too sensitive, or you know,
there's a way they want to be handled. And
then now Gen Z are looking at Gen X as dismissive, or emotionally unavailable, or passive, right?
They don't want to deal with these things. They don't want to talk about it.
And so, but we know that again, these are things that are unavoidable, right? And so there's a lot of unlearning, a lot of uncomfortable conversations that would need to happen, open dialogue as well, and collaborating on doing activities together. I mean, I hear of programs where they have AI programs where they are calling Gen Zs with their parents to collaborate.
That, by the way, is a very good idea. I think so.
So now what's happening here is the Gen Zs are able to get information from the Gen X about user-friendly, because tech should be inclusive. Everyone should be able to use tech comfortably.
It should be simplified to the very basic.
So now, if they're not involved, they'll be left behind, right? So these programs are now bringing that collaborative
to bridge now the gap.
So now Gen X are learning about, you know, the digital space, understanding how, you know, why Gen Z is also like have found empowerment through it as well. Of course, there's the other side of it where with social media, there's the dark side of it. You know, where it has the
its own
bad mental health impact. But also there's the good side where people have found empowerment, right? And I think Gen X, this is helping Gen X understand that world, and also the Gen Zs understand the Gen X
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
In fact, storytelling should become a thing. I think Gen X tell stories, give context, because the only context sometimes that happens is, we were walking without shoes, and when
It goes back to what you were saying. I actually was thinking about it. We are so fond of talking of all these negative things, the struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
How we used to read at night with that that kalam that they used to.
Yeah.
And because it was 1 or 2 in the house, it can't be in every room. So it depends who's doing homework. Then they all gather around it's called a kanyitira, so they all come around it.
Yeah.
And but there's so many other good stories that I think have also been watered down.
Yeah.
But also because I think the Gen X believe, and this is now where maybe the unlearning comes in, that the success, what they call success today, which again to the Gen Z is not,
it's not a one size fits all.
Please, yeah.
Right.
So what they call success was birthed out of that grit,
Yes.
the struggle. And they believe that, but now we are talking of a generation that works smart.
Yes.
And maybe the other thing to also unwrap what is success, because success in this generation, success in this other generation seem to be two different things.
Yeah.
That
was the blueprint.
I'm done. Collect rent or do something. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
But now we have, a generation that is talking of online cryptocurrency, buying property online, digital property.
Yeah, digital real estate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe we can discuss now and I know most Gen X even don't understand.
Yeah.
Why, for them, maybe they may still want, okay, no, after you've done all that, still buy a plot. Plot is important. Yeah.
And to be honest, I think that's valid advice. That's good advice. I mean, because it could be a safety net.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. But definitely there is a difference in how
perception.
Yeah, success is being perceived, right? For Gen X, there was that blueprint, right?
Yeah.
That people followed.
Yeah.
And it worked for many people at that time. And now you're finding that people who have tried that. Gen Z is also, they've tried it, and millennials tried it.
Yeah. It's not giving them the satisfaction.
It's not giving the same results.
Yeah.
And then now you the thing is, you see, with Gen X, there was a black and white perspective, all or nothing perspective of life.
Yeah.
Success was, doctor, lawyer, engineer,
Yes.
A lot of other professions aside from that were not valued like that.
Yes.
You can, parenting, food, shelter, clothing,
Yes.
And you see that, if you compare to how they were raised, that's a lot. That is
you've done it by the end to end.
You feel, yes, I am.
It is
really
end to end.
I'm really,
Yeah.
Now with Gen Z, they're looking at life in different shades of gray. It's not only black and white. This is not the only way I can find success. I can find success through the digital space. I can find success through renewable energy, talent. Just different avenues for success, right? And also, one thing I can say is distinct is for Gen X, for what they do is tied to who they are. Many Gen Xers have found their self-worth through what they do. Now you find that for Gen X, there was you're living to work.
Yes.
It's like you're just living to work.
Yeah.
But for Gen Z, they're working to live. Work is a tool to live
Yeah,
a life that they
a
feel
kind
is
of,
fulfilling.
it's a means to an end.
Exactly. So if this is not working out like that, right?
Then
if
I
it's
can pick
affecting your
something.
mental health,
You
there's no
drop
point.
it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this is just
Wow.
what I do. It's not who I am.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So you're seeing that
Yeah,
there are those
the
who have been able to
difference.
separate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why a Gen X is looking at a Gen Z and saying, just take that job. Just
Yeah.
take that. But to them,
And it's not that they have something else.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
before you'd feel like going on leave,
No, pay me the days.
yeah, maybe
I'll
the
work.
days, yeah. You're
But
thinking, hey, no, what if they find someone? No,
yes,
let me just stay, you know.
I just
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
there's just that's distinction. Yeah, that is different, and it's defining success. So for many, like a Gen Z can tell you, I have peace of mind. That is success.
that is
to me.
what for me.
Yeah. And with peace of mind, you can achieve your goals
Yeah,
now.
true.
You know.
In many ways.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kevin. We've had a great conversation. I think very informative. I've also learned a lot. And before we end, maybe you could just share with us your contacts. I'm sure there may be one or two who would want to reach out to you
Yes.
for further consultations and help with understanding a lot of this. Yes.
So one on social media, you can reach me on Twitter. It's at Gashe. Feel free
Spell
to
that
reach
for
out.
us, please.
At GACHEE. Yeah, at
Okay.
Gashe. You'll find me on Twitter. Or X, sorry. X.
Yeah.
As they say nowadays.
Okay.
Also, in terms of a contact number to reach me and my practice, it's 0799 872 817. That's 0799 872 817. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you
That
for
was a
having
good
me.
conversation. Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
And thank you, viewer, for being with us on this show. I truly hope you've been able to get some good information, impactful. As we say, Deeper Conversations is the talk that builds. We look forward to having you again for another episode of the same show. Thank you and goodbye.